All right.
Nice.
I'm just joking. I just thought it'd be fun.
Welcome to the Halloween
Oh man.
episode.
This is scary time. Oh man. Let's see. There's the thing on
Cue that up.
here. All right.
So
Nobody's watching right now, anyways.
Syntax basically referenced me in their last YouTube video.
What? What did they say?
They
Don't
had a
put your
CSS
security
variable.
card on your on your desk.
They had a CSS variable called Brad, but it was for
What?
border radius.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. And Scott was like going through making edits to like style int rules, and he like opens this file and he goes, "Oh, that's an old variable." And so I like pinged him. I was like, "Let's make an exception to this one for me."
I didn't know if they were gonna make like a Curly Boys reference. On top of that.
Nice. Those shirts are still killing it.
That's awesome. I've been, I don't know, thinking about side projects. I have a few ideas. I think I'm like at the point where I'm like, I just need to commit to one thing. Like I'm afraid that by trying to be scattered and do too much, that I'm not actually making ground on one thing. Like I might be more productive if I commit.
I'll save my like side project update when we talk about my starter progress, but I think it just comes down to like knowing when to cut the cord and get going. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we can talk more about that too. Some of it I was like editing, thinking about the Danny Grant podcast. I wasn't on it. You and James were. And she was saying that it took like 8 iterations of Dev Jam to or Jam Dev to get it to something. And I'm like, that's kind of like having 8 different projects going. It's just under a different name. Okay, I'm gonna just.
I'm still. Well, I'll save it too. I'll save it.
Let's just start.
Yeah.
Welcome the 2 people that are watching right now. I just tweeted about it, so we'll see if Twitter still does anything.
Also, feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go. We can pick. This is a host only episode, so we're direct us. We're open to stuff. Let's do it.
Yeah. Hopefully the name isn't clickbaity because it's not like we're using AI right now.
I just looked up and saw the title.
We're just vibing today. Not really AI, but okay. I was queuing up the music. Awesome. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. And today we are vibe podcasting, not really AI podcasting, but we're bringing all the vibes, all the topics.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compressed.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi. I'm a senior front-end developer at Stripe.
Woohoo. Okay, so in the pre-show, Brad and I started talking, and we kept saying, we'll wait until we actually go live. So we're going live and talking about like side projects. Brad's been working on a Remix starter kit, talking about some exciting updates with Redwood SDK. I mean, all the things. So where do you want to start?
I'll give my progress update on my Remix application starter.
Yeah.
Like it's been 99% of the way there for a while. And like yesterday I was like fiddling with exactly how I run my end-to-end tests. Like I have the Remix dev tools installed, but when you run end-to-end tests, you kind of have to run in production mode so the dev tools aren't there because it gets in the way of your selectors for like making sure things exist. And I'm like, is this really what I'm doing right now? Like, is this really where I'm spending my time and effort? I was like, if I disable the dev tools with a conditional environment variable in the Vite config, or maybe I could use the URL flag. And I'm like, I stepped back. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why does this even matter when it comes to building projects, right? Where what you want to do is you want to try ideas and put stuff out there. And I've got to just cut the cord and call this thing
Mm,
good enough. Like it does
yeah.
what I want it to do. I've got database integrations, I've got authentication, I've got password reset flows, I've got, end-to-end tests, unit tests, Sentry integration. It's good enough. Like,
Yeah.
why am I messing with stuff? And when I
Uh-huh.
need to go add, I was like, oh, maybe I should add a light and a dark mode too, right? And I'm just like, stop. Like,
Mm,
if I get a product to a point where it needs to like support that kind of stuff, go do it. But right now, I'm where I need to be in order to start building things. Why am I
yeah.
still messing around?
Yeah. It's
That's my
so
take. I need to cut the cord, call it version 1, uh, and move forward.
Yeah, it's so hard. My Build 12 project, so far, I'm failing miserably creating 12 projects, but it's one of those things that, like, I think about, I'm like, "Okay, I haven't shipped anything, so I guess you can call that a failure." But when I think about all the other things that I have done, so I've created, several NPM packages, which I hadn't done as of January 1. I
Nice.
have, a couple of landing pages that I've created. I just, like, actually need to announce them. So I have, like,
Are they live?
WTO
Like, do they live on the
Oh,
internet?
do they live? One of them does. So I probably should add this is why I haven't announced it. I want to add some more documentation so it's a little bit clear. Like I'll include a link. WTOTF.com. So this one is what the OTF. OTF is a font format. And so I was running into a few issues where I needed to create a OTF file format. And so I just have a command line that'll do it for you. So that's what that does. And I wanted to be creative one day. So I made a whole landing page for this dumb little script that I wrote. Then I also have Lemon Lime SVGs, which I don't think I have. No, I haven't launched the site yet. But I've even recorded myself building out the site, which I need to edit and stick on YouTube. But I created a package called Lemon Lime SVGs. I've talked about it briefly before, but it will take a folder of SVGs and convert it to a sprite for you. I found that I was taking the script from one project to the next, and I was like, why not just bundle this into an NPM package? So that's been lovely. I also created one called Captain React Hooks, and I bought the domain for it, of course, but don't have a landing page. But I have released a package, and it contains all the React hooks that I found myself copying from one project to the next. So
Can
that's
you give
been
some examples of the hooks? I'm curious.
yeah. Yeah. The biggest one that I use all the time is click outside. So if I have like a
Mm.
pop-up window and you click outside, or a modal window, click outside, or a sheet, click outside, that triggers that hook. So along with that, I have the use escape key. So if something pops up, you can hit the escape key and it closes. So those are the two that I use all the time. But I did add a few more in there. I'll share a link to this as well. Just need to grab it. Those are, those are the ones that I use all the time. Like I said, I did throw in a few more. Maybe include a link to the repo. Drop that guy in. So there's other ones like, I do use this one too. Use auto size text area. So if you're typing into a text area, it will automatically expand down as you type, which is pretty great.
How do you handle that?
Yeah. It's one of those things I figured it out once and don't ever do it again.
Is it a
You
JavaScript
have
thing where you're
to,
like measuring, or is
yeah.
this? Oh, that sucks. Okay.
You have to measure how much text you have in it. And the stinky part, you're using state, obviously, because you have to update it every time that you put text into the text area. But you
Hmm.
have to save that inside the value inside a state. So it is like a controlled component, which stinks. But
And do you do something like you do like a document.create element text area with the thing, and then you like measure it, and then
let
like
me
set
pull it
that
up.
those measurements on the text area or something, or how do you?
Yes. So temporarily, have the file. It's like a super small function. Here, let me just copy the deep link for it. What you do is you initially set the height to 0, and then you have to measure the height of it. So I'm using that dot scroll height. So you're using a use ref within
Yep.
React, and
Yep.
then you're dynamically setting the height of it. So it's kind of a little hacky, but it's not a big function. But like I said, you have to keep track of state. The other one that I use this more than I thought I did too. The use copy to clipboard. So it's not a hard function in JavaScript. It's just like a single line navigator.clipboard.write text, but I can never remember it. So I like having a nice little wrapper, nice little hook to call that. I have another one for intervals, uh, using local storage, determining if something's on screen. So there's a handful of them. But like I said, when you asked me, how do you do that? It's like, just figure it out once, save that code and use it again. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel every single time.
Yeah. I made a function the other day for parsing form data. So it essentially takes a request as an input and a Zod schema, and it just reads the
Yes.
form data out of the request, hits the Zod schema, gives you back the object. Because I
So
got sick
lovely.
and tired of like object dot from entries, form data
Yes.
dot entries, and I was like, I don't want to look at that. Like, just give me the
Yeah.
function.
Yeah. I need to do more with Zod because they just released the next version of Zod too.
I think it was mostly like performance improvements. I didn't see a ton
Okay.
of like new features.
Okay.
Going back to the NPM package thing though,
Yeah.
this is a great talking point. A lot of people use monorepos for stuff like this.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm just going to put every single one of my projects in a monorepo, and all of these tiny little utilities are packages that live in a monorepo.
Mm.
What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think some of it depends on what you're doing. So I only have like a handful. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, it just makes sense to put it all in one. Like, why bother creating a bunch of like smaller packages for it? But I could see if you were working at a larger organization like Stripe, where you're like, I don't want to pull in 200 utility packages to my project. It would make more sense, I think, in that case, to only pull in what you need.
Yeah, I think it becomes like a problem of like releasing at scale. Like
Mm-hmm.
if if you releasing this NPM package is going to cause like 100 things that consume it to have to update it, then it
Mm-hmm.
might be easier to put it in a mono repo and reference it
Right.
that way.
Right.
For my workflows and the scale of my packages and my projects, I just find it so much easier to be like, and especially like in my own head, this package does this one thing and it is an
Uh-huh.
independent unit and it gets released and managed independently, right?
Yep.
And so what? If I have to go and update it in a bunch of other places, then
Yep.
so be it. But the beauty of it still is like it's incremental updates. If you don't want to update it
Mhm.
now, you don't have to. It's not going to break.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, I just think monorepos at scale wind up causing more problems than they fix. They create
Yes.
a whole nother class of problems. Literally
Yes.
your Git repo gets too big. Checkout and
Yep.
changing branches is slow. Merging is
Mhm.
freaking impossible. So yeah,
Right.
they create a ton of problems later on down the line.
Yep. Oh, and there's one more that I created. So I think this one's like half baked, but found myself like, I have a Prisma schema and I need to create a seed file for this. And it felt so monotonous. It's like, you
Mm.
see the type of data that I'm looking for. Just generate the seed for me. So I have one called it's like Prisma fertilizer or something
Oh,
that
that's sick.
will just generate those seed files for you.
How are you going from Prisma schema to like data? Like what's your process? Did you write a schema
Oh,
parser or did
oh,
you
vibe
use the package?
coding.
Okay.
Vibe coding. It's
So you
wonderful.
vibe coded a schema parser and then just called faker or
Absolutely.
whatever for the data.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
I did read the code to make sure I knew what was happening, but it was
Mhm.
amazing because a lot of times it is just mapping things that you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know what this is. I mean, this is where AI is perfect. It's like AI can read this.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
And
generate
I'm
the
sure Prisma
faker
open
thing.
sources their schema parser somehow. Like I'm sure it's like an AST. You can look at the thing and see the type
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot of this stuff this is one area where I have used vibe coding. And I
Yeah.
think this is where vibe coding like really excels is when you're trying to do something small and very distinct. And it's just like you give it the job and it runs. And I think
Yeah.
where I've run into issues is when I'm trying to do larger projects and I have more files that I'm trying to load into context and keep everything straight.
Yes. Yes, totally. I feel like I'm just like can't instead of me dragging individual files in, like I'm working in a project, use the whole project. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yep. Yep. Have you done anything with MCP?
no, haven't written anything,
Okay.
nothing like that.
That's one area where I really wanna do a little bit of digging, um, but
But I mean, I
yeah.
think I was talking to some folks about it too the other night at the meetup at the Cloudflare office.
Mhm.
Um, the idea is just like it's like predefined functions for your AI to go call.
Mhm.
Just because you define those functions doesn't mean your AI is going to pick the right one every time. At the end of
Right.
the day, it's kind of like if it deduces that that is the answer, you know it will complete that action with accuracy because you coded it.
Yeah.
But you still have to get it there, right?
Yeah. You know what helped me kind of think about this, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but if you watch Raycast's announcement on their AI tools feature, that's
Yeah,
basically what Pedro is doing
yeah,
in that video, is he's creating these functions for Raycast AI to hook into, like, send this email, so then it grabs
yes.
this function.
Yes, and you can see, like, they use the @ symbol and stuff, and it kinda
Mhm.
just says, like, "Hey, look, then talk to this MCP server for
Mhm.
calendar," and then it has the, actions that it can perform. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, just to come full circle and kinda tie this topic up with a little bow, I have not delivered a finished app, but I have all these other projects that I have done and worked on. So, I even have a couple of there's a site that I'm working on. I'm super excited about this one. It's called Weeks Matter, and you actually shared the original repo. So,
I have a
Gina
to-do
Trippi
list to put that thing in my website. That
oh,
idea is so cool. I love it.
yeah. Okay, so let me explain. Gina Trippiano. She is a longtime internet person. I used to follow her like 15, 20 years ago. She ran a blog. She was the editor for it called Lifehacker. And back then, a lot of this productivity tech stuff wasn't really around. So I would go to this blog every single day and read about like Firefox plugins and hacks. And like this was even pre iPhone. So it was like, how do you combine your
Wow.
digital life and go paperless? I mean, anyways, makes me sound like an old lady. But I loved reading her work. Well, a few months ago, Brad shared a link that she had created on her website where like, apparently it's a thing. There's several websites that do this, but you have
Mhm.
a box to represent every single week of your life. And assuming you live to be 100, which I know most of us don't, it gives you a visual representation of your life. So some of that can feel a little overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, like one, how do I remember all the things that have happened? And two, like my life looks long, but it also looks short at the same time. But it was really cool just to see how she described her life and different phases of her life. Obviously, her young childhood, she did not have nearly as many events listed as she did once she started to reach adulthood and could remember more. But it's just a really interesting way to document the things that you've done. So, anyways, I bought the domain weeksmatter.com, and it is an application that basically allows you to enter all of that stuff in. So it's not just my week calendar, but anybody that would want to like create a profile and add theirs. So I have all the design work done. I have it half built, actually doing Redwood SDK, which is pretty cool. There's a starter that we have with Redwood SDK that is using Prisma, and I love Prisma, but I thought I want to really get a feel for how Drizzle works and operates. So it is using Drizzle, which is also interesting because they have a direct Cloudflare support for that. So, anyways, kind of fun. Oh, are you muted? Or
Yes,
did
I
my
am. I
air?
was gonna say,
Okay.
wow, this is a perfect transition because I've been working on integrating, Drizzle with Cloudflare in a Remix app.
Oh,
It it
interesting.
okay, Drizzle works great and Cloudflare works great when you're talking to
Hmm.
production. It's terrible for local development.
Oh, what happened?
So, and I wanna know how you did this.
Uh
So,
huh.
the idea is that the Cloudflare has this Wrangler CLI that you can add a dash
Hmm.
dash local or dash dash remote flag to. And this basically says if it's remote, it uses your deployed instance. If it's local, it runs SQLite. inside of Miniflare, their
Mhm.
local Cloudflare environment. That's fine and dandy. But when you're using an ORM and you need, let's say, Drizzle to connect to local versus production, how does Drizzle know what the local database is? It doesn't expose like a URL, right? Drizzle's configuration takes a Cloudflare account ID and a database ID and an API token. So Drizzle always wants to talk to production.
Mm.
The only way I've found to do this is to point Drizzle directly at the local SQLite file on your system if you're running in development mode. And it feels
Interesting.
super hacky because you're going into you're pointing Drizzle at a file that's in like a .wrangler directory,
Oh,
5 levels
yes.
deep. There's 20 SQLite files in there because they version your database and you just sort them by date and you pick the most recent one. And boom, now you
Yeah.
get Drizzle Studio on your local or your remote.
Right.
And your Drizzle config is now split into an if else. Were you able to
Yeah.
get that working locally,
That's a good
or were you just
question.
developing
So
on production?
to be honest, I don't know because I haven't launched to production
Okay.
yet. But also I don't know what Redwood SDK is doing under the hood
Okay.
to know if they're handling that local production problem for me. I do know that with the Prisma, like our standard starter that uses Prisma, if you want to use Prisma Studio, you do have to go in and find that .wrangler D1 instance, and it has a crazy long string, and you do have to
Yes.
pass that in as an environmental variable. You can't
Okay.
program that in. That's kind of what we discovered. You can't program
You
that in
can't.
because it's dynamic and it changes.
It's
So,
it's like a hash. It's like a giant hash
yeah.
.SQLite, and
Yep. Yep.
I think this is a major opportunity for Cloudflare. If they can help
Mm,
the ORMs or just provide a better access layer to the local
yeah.
database, like, it's there. It's just a SQLite file. Just name it the
Sure.
name of the database, or change
Mhm.
the folder structure slightly. Now
Yep.
then people are gonna be able to, or just set an environment variable. Why not do
Mhm.
that? Um,
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
man,
that's
that
good
would make
feedback.
everybody's life so much easier, and,
Yep.
I think I'm gonna it rubbed me the wrong way that I'm so much so that I'm just gonna pivot and use the database bindings in context and just
Mm.
write SQL. So
Mhm.
and I'll
Mhm.
just write my own types. It's for a small project. I'm building the Remix Austin meetup website.
Cool.
So I just need to store some talk submissions, and so it's not gonna be that
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Yep, yep. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I
Yeah, so, I
checked
mean,
Prisma's integration and it was the same. It was
yeah.
connect to the HTTP Cloudflare
Yes.
endpoint.
Yes. So, I mean, I've done stuff.
Yeah,
This year hasn't been a complete
new
wash. I've
stuff.
done a lot of stuff, but I think it goes back to the greater thing that you were talking about is what is like the thing that I want to commit to. And I think that's the part that's holding me back is either like, for example, the build 12, the projects are too large in scope, or I just need to commit to a project and finish it. And you suggested early on, you said, Amy, finish a project before you move on to the next one. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
And
I
kept
I
moving
love the
on.
Weeks project because I'm sitting here going, "Okay, I
Mhm.
gotta build the whole if I wanna put it on my website, I gotta build the whole entire thing and figure it all out." And all you need is like, if you could somehow output that to an iframe or, something like
Mhm.
that, people can host it themselves, or maybe you make a containerize it and be like, "Self-host this," or I don't know, generate it
Yeah.
statically or something, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But if you had an option where they didn't have to go to, brad.weeksmatter.com or something, and you could just,
Uh-huh.
almost statically generate their code from their
Oh,
stuff,
sure. Sure.
that could be really cool because then they could take that, put it on their own website, and,
Yeah.
maybe there's a disclaimer, built made with weeksmatter.com or something, that's a sick
Sure.
idea.
It would be easy to give you an API. So you could just take
Oh, yeah,
if you
sure, that
wanted
yeah.
to keep your content on there, you can just put it on there and then get your API. The other thing is we talked about this, I think, last week. Cloudflare has a deploy to Cloudflare button. So you could easily just
Yes.
put that on the repo. And if you want to self-host it, just go ahead and grab it because the code is open source anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point is for it to be a learning experience with the Redwood SDK stuff, especially with Drizzle. So um, I have
What
no
did you
problem
what did you think about Drizzle
sharing.
versus Prisma?
It is a different mindset
Mhm.
because it feels more like it's some ways like chaining methods when you're
which I'm okay with.
yeah, same.
I
Whereas
just
Prisma feels like you're just shoving every config into a JavaScript object.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
I just don't like the schema writing in Drizzle because it feels like you're writing like SQL, and I'm just like I'm less
mm,
familiar with SQL, and I like Prisma's thing where they have a really good VS Code extension, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just
yeah.
writing JavaScript object type definitions almost,
Yep.
and they Prisma's even so good when you're defining relationships, it'll like automatically add the
Mhm.
relationship in the related item.
Yep. Um, I love Supabase. We've talked about this before. The
Mhm.
Drizzle API feels a lot like Supabase, so
Yes,
it's comfy to me. The one beef that I have with Supabase is I don't like how it generates types, or it's just typing is so hard with Supabase, and I don't know if that's just I haven't figured out the local environment in order to generate those types or what, but I have a project where I'm using Prisma to create migrations, which I know Supabase has migrations, but I'd rather use Prisma. I know it's dumb. But then I use the Supabase API because I'm also using Supabase Auth. But then I end up using Prisma types, and it just becomes a giant type war between Supabase and Prisma, and it's gross. So I've been working on a tutorial, which we can talk about too, for Redwood SDK that uses Prisma throughout the entire app. And that feels a lot better using the same solution
I
from
think
front to back.
if you're gonna bring in an ORM, you need to lean on it heavily.
Mhm.
I was kind of feeling the same way integrating D1 and stuff. Like Wrangler can
Mm.
do migrations, but so
Yep.
can Drizzle. And I was like, well, who should be in charge here? You know, is Drizzle generating the migration files and then Wrangler is applying them? And I'm like, it's weird, right? It's
Mhm.
weird. You need to have a more
Like, pick one.
heavy-handed approach, right?
Yeah.
Opinionated.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll kind of go off on that. Been writing a lot. So originally on the Redwood JS site for our GraphQL implementation, we have this giant tutorial, and it's really a masterclass in how to write a full stack application. It explains using Storybook, it explains testing. I mean, it explains a whole lot, but at least I felt so empowered when I finished going through that tutorial. So we needed something new for the Redwood SDK. So I've been working on that tutorial, and it is a lot of words. It's been a lot of writing. It's taken a lot longer than I thought it would, but some of it is because I do have that junior dev person in mind as I'm writing this. So, Brad, you might read this and get, I don't know if annoyed is the right word, but you just
Mm.
would feel like, oh, this is verbose. Just give me the core concepts. So we'll either have maybe another tutorial specifically for you in mind, or you could just read the core documentation and be like, I know what I'm doing, and move
What
on.
I what I kind of like is like a getting started where it's like, here's how you init, here's how you
Mhm.
read data, here's how you write data, here's how you run tests, here's how you
Yep.
add a component. Like the first 10 things you're going to need to do.
Yep.
But like each one has a headline and it's like has a code example and like that's
Yep.
pretty much it. And they're like, "Oh, you need more? Here's the more like here's the API
Yeah.
docs or you want more words, more
Yep.
explanation. Here's the actual, step-by-step tutorial for that
Yep.
junior dev type thing where you
Yep.
walk through every step and connect it."
Yep. So we have that first part, but I feel like there's a lot lacking. So kind of what you were saying, you need a more link where you can get that more information.
Mhm.
Still need to write that. And then, like I said, I've been working on the tutorial. So anyways, it is pretty cool. It's a job applications tracker. So you can go in and load up jobs and do all the CRUD operations. And then I set up relationships between companies and contacts and job applications. So
Nice.
you get everything without doing a to-do app, basically. But it's using Shad, which has also been an interesting experience. Um, there's things that I like and things I don't. Have you used Shad before?
Yeah, I actually used Chat for the very first time on like a small demo app. Um, I thought it was cool. Like
Yeah.
at first, I didn't like hold on, you're gonna put a bunch of code directly in my repo,
Mm,
but then I need to change some styles, and I was like, "Hey, it's right there." And I
yep.
thought it was well written when I cracked it open to, like, make some modifications. I was like, "Oh, I I get this. This isn't like overly
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah. One of the things I do like leaning on that for is like when I'm writing the tutorial, I don't have to explain this is how you write a pop-up. This is how you write a sheet component. So
Yeah.
otherwise we'd spend all this time creating those elements. I can just reference an existing component. The part that I've run into though is it is built on top of Radix UI, which is fantastic, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of functionality that then gets hidden into Radix. And some of it is just me not understanding Radix. And so it's like, okay, I need to figure out how to close this sheet programmatically. And then it's like trying to dig through layers to figure out what API call I need to make in order
Uh,
to change that state.
yeah, that's true. I never like interacted with Chatsian components via JavaScript to
Mhm.
control them. I don't is there documentation, I guess, non-existent on that then, if you had to drop into
It
Radix?
it is, but you have to like and Chad did a great job on every single component page. There is a link to the specific Radix component that it is referencing, but you do have to do a little bit of digging to figure out, okay,
Gotcha,
what's the underlying pieces. And if
gotcha.
you go into the component file, you'll notice, I mean, Shad is just a wrapper for all those Radix components. So it's not like you can just look at the code and be like, oh, I know
Right.
what I need to call. So sometimes that can be a little frustrating too.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if type definitions would help, you know? Does he expose all that where you can just kind of,
Um,
discern what it is by looking at the
yes.
types?
Yes, some of it is, I think, I'm not sure if that was typed or AI, actually, on second thought,
Mm.
because I know, like, I was modifying a component and I knew what it was, but it was hinting at the correct capitalization for me.
Dude,
But like I said, I'm
that's
not
the other
sure.
thing. Right now, with all these auto completions being suggested to you, I find that, like, TypeScript completions and AI autocomplete are kind
Mhm.
of battling for space right after my cursor, and
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, every single time I want the truth, which is,
Mhm.
like,
TypeScript.
TypeScript, like,
Yep.
this is exactly what you can do on this object, I don't need you to suggest me something, like, I'm already kind of doing it.
Mhm.
When you're auto completing in that dropdown, I want that first.
Yep. Yep, that makes sense. The I had to do a little bit of digging on Cursor yesterday because they changed the default behavior in the chat panel to be agent, and it used to be
Yeah,
ask,
VS
and
Code
it
did too.
drives me crazy because I want to, especially if I'm working on a large project, I'm like, you just start grabbing files. If it's vibe coding, it's fine, but if it's a large project, I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
I would rather, like, proof, what it's doing and read through the code and either add it myself or apply those changes manually than have it just start grabbing stuff. It's greedy.
Yeah. Have you, tried next edit suggestions? Does Cursor have that? Or is that just a VS
Uh,
Code thing?
that might be a VS Code thing.
Yeah, okay, so basically, like, if you I'm trying to think, not if, like, you rename a function, that happens everywhere, but if you change something, I don't know, they'll give you, like, another tab stop to be like, "Hey, if you press tab, we're gonna bring you down here to make the
Oh,
next change that we think you're probably gonna make." And I had to turn it off. It was sometimes it was right, but the times that it was wrong, I'm just like, all you're doing is moving me around my own files, and you're like
yeah.
pulling me away from where I'm focusing.
Sure, sure. Now, I tell you what's been interesting. I mentioned this tutorial that I've been writing, and so I have been authoring it inside of Cursor because it's a markdown file, and AI tries to write stuff for me.
Mm,
Sometimes it's been helpful because I have these code snippets that
sure.
I'm referencing, and so we're using expressive code. Have you used this before? This is awesome.
No, never even heard of it.
So, here, I'll include a link to the project, but it's expressive-code.com. And this just works on top of like your MDX. And I think Astro Starlight has it built in. We've also added a few plugins, but it allows you to really push any code blocks that you have within your markdown. So you can highlight different line numbers, you can collapse line numbers, you can highlight certain words, you can inject comments into your code, like pulling. I say inject comments, like it will highlight lines of code that you have within your code block. So anyways, it's great. I've loved writing it, and I think it looks fantastic in terms of trying to communicate with code. But anyways, what's interesting is Cursor will try and guess file names and start line numbers, which is I just think that that's interesting. If it can keep
Yeah.
track of the line number that I'm talking about, or if it just guesses randomly. Like I found sometimes it's like, this will be about line 10, or this should be about line 100. But just because they're nice round numbers, I'm like, yeah, you're guessing.
Yeah.
But anyways, now that I've written quite a bit, sometimes it tries to guess what I'm going to say with my own words. And so that's kind of been fun to be like, no, I'm not going to say that next.
Markdown is where I actually disabled any auto completions first. I was just like,
Yeah.
you just don't know what I'm gonna say. And I get it for like
You
code
don't
snippets
know.
and stuff. That's helpful, but I'm just like, none of this sounds like me yet. And
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't have
Yeah.
enough of my information. So
Yeah. Some of it doesn't, some of it does. But it's like Frozen. We finish each other's sandwiches. Uh,
well, let's see. I used a new API recently,
ooh.
abort controller.
Yeah, I wanted you to explain this because you said I'm a 20x dev now, and I don't know what that means.
I just felt like so smart when I used abort controller, but it just has that kind of name. You know what I mean? If you're not familiar, like the abort controller, it's this class you instantiate. It has a controller, and it's got two methods. It's got signal and it's got abort. And I guess you can kind of use signal as like, the like a token you hand to a fetch request. So here I'm the abort controller. Here's your token fetch request, and if I tell you to stop or go back home or cancel, like that's what you're going to do. So when you define
Mm,
a fetch request, you hand it controller.signal. And at any time, if a fetch request is in progress, you can cancel it with controller.abort. And I was doing this because I made some little demo app with vanilla JavaScript where, like, when you're pressing a button, you're loading posts in. And I realized if you press the button really fast, it'll try to fetch like the same post twice. Like the,
mm,
the loop to fetch the post and increment the next to the next post ID like was still there. And I was like, oh, I'll make an abort controller to do this. So every time you were firing the handler, you'd make a new abort controller. And if there was one already there, you'd cancel the previous request and then set up a new abort controller to track the next request. That's what Remix does out of the box. Like anytime you
mm,
run an action, it has an abort controller looking at any previous actions and it cancels in-flight actions. So if you look at your network tab, it's full of red, but they'll all say canceled, and that's expected.
mm.
And Next.js doesn't do this at all for their like server stuff. And so I was like really cool to get in there and implement one myself by hand with vanilla JavaScript. And I was like, oh, this is
Nice,
what all the frameworks do, really cool. And so I just felt
nice.
like I'm a framework author now, basically, because I wrote an abort controller.
That's awesome. And I was looking, I've never heard of this, and it is a web API
Yes, yes.
right on the
Totally
NPM docs.
standard, yeah.
Yeah, very
So
cool.
like this is cool. Like anytime you have like let's say a search bar that goes and hits an API, don't use a debounce, use an abort controller instead.
Mm,
It'll just cancel the in-flight request and use the next one. No cooldown time, no millisecond waiting, nothing like that. This will just be like, here's a new one. Take the fresh one, cancel
mhm.
the old one.
Yeah. Now, this might be a dumb question, but I'll
No
ask
such
it.
thing.
Um, not true. But you mentioned there's a signal and abort. Is this signal part the same signal that we talk about with like Svelte or Solid using signals? Different signal. Okay.
No, a different signal. Signal to me is like I I'm trying to think of like a really good analogy. Um, it's just like a unique it's like an identifier
Okay.
for that specific fetch request. So
Okay.
fetch as part of the options object takes a signal. And that's just how you connect that abort controller to that fetch
Got it.
request. So you can
Cool.
technically have multiple fetch requests tied to the same abort controller. So if you call dot abort, it would cancel many fetch requests. So
Got it.
there's a lot of different use cases, but That's the thing. It's just like the thing that
Okay.
ties the fetch to the controller.
Yeah, got it. Very cool. What else was on our list?
Well, more about web platform APIs, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Have you been looking at web components?
I have not, but I've been talking to General Motors,
Okay.
who does use web components. I've got a friend who works there, and as he was talking about what he does, he's like, "Yeah, I'm working on General Motors brand websites, and they use web components for a lot of things." And I was like, "This is awesome. Tell me more." And
Mhm.
the gist is that they try to stay really close to the platform. They don't want to use a lot of frameworks and stuff. They've got a headless CMS, and all the front end stuff is built with web components and web platform APIs. And it's such an interesting take, especially at big company scale to hear this.
Mhm.
And I think it brings up the conversation of like, is are just using platform APIs worth the trade-off of not getting the framework features, right? What
Mhm.
are the pros and cons?
Yeah.
And in my head, what I think about is like, okay, if you use a framework, you get a lot of things for free. You get the ecosystem
Mhm.
around it. Let's say
Mhm.
React has, routers and component libraries and all this stuff built for it. But now you have like, you're kind of locked into that framework. And when that framework has major updates or something like that, it takes a huge effort to migrate. That's why you still see enterprise apps with like really old versions of React or like class components hanging around, or,
Mhm.
people haven't even fully migrated to hooks. And so it creates a giant mass of tech debt that is almost impossible to solve completely at scale. But on the flip side, if you buy into like web platform APIs, that's it. It's a standard.
Mhm.
Like that won't ever be, you know, deprecated or anything. It's just gonna
Right.
get built on
Right.
top of. And so you eliminate all maintenance costs, you guarantee the best performance, you have accessibility built in because that's how that kind of stuff comes out of the box. For instance, the new select menus that are gonna be stylable and all
Mhm.
that stuff. So
Yep.
it's cool to hear a company leaning in so hard into web platform APIs. Well, what's your
We've
take? Would you ever build
Oh
something
man.
like vanilla, something completely vanilla?
I don't know. I I'm a framework maintainer. I love a framework. Oh man. But even with that said, we have tried to do so much work with the new version, the new Redwood SDK, of staying closer to the browser and
Mhm,
really trying to leverage browser APIs. And
mhm.
I think there's something beautiful about that. And I feel like a lot of people are coming back around to that. I would say Remix is probably the first framework that was like, why are we doing all this crazy stuff? Use
Yeah.
HTML forms.
Uh,
So we've
it
adopted a lot of that. Oh, go ahead.
it's weird too because, like, um, I've been taking some interviews lately, right? And they ask questions that are very React centric, and they're like, "Controlled inputs and use effect and state," and I'm like, I don't write this stuff on a daily basis." Like, it's just I like using web standards, I like using forms, I like using requests, like, it felt
Yeah.
so weird even though it's still in my knowledge bank. It's not a tool that I
Yeah.
pull out anymore.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting. There's things. Okay, let me put it this way. We have talked about, or I've talked about, how I feel like there's two types of developers. There's the ones that love the magic and the ones that
Mhm,
are like, I need to understand what's going on. I'm a
mhm.
magical developer. I love it. I buy into it. But with that said, I feel like there is, if I'm being honest, there's gaps in my knowledge about how certain things work because I've just bought into this magic. And so there's things that even with the Redwood SDK stuff now that I'm like, oh, I didn't understand that's really what was happening under the hood because we have tried to go back to that. And it does make it easier to explain those concepts when you're just going back to the basics. So I'll give you an example so that's a little bit more concrete. With our router, It's all about the request response. And that's all the web is, right? Is request response. I'm going to go request a URL. I'm going to give you something back. And so just the way the router's set up, I've like dug deeper into that to say, okay, well, with each request, what do you get? With each response, what are you sending back? And so that's different than when you're just using these fancy, say next wrappers that will handle that stuff for you, or you're just looking at the next API to be like, what do I have access to? Where it's like, no, look at the browser API. We're on MDM. We're digging around. I have this out of the box. I didn't know. So that's been kind of different for me.
It also makes your browser dev tools like 1,000 times more valuable.
Yeah.
When there's less framework magic,
Mm-hmm.
what you're looking at in the dev tools is like exactly what you care about. The request and response is going to
Yeah.
have the information you need. Whereas if you look
Yep.
at, let's say, React Server Components or some of the next stuff, what they're sending back and forth looks like garbage. It's
Mm-hmm.
not as parsable as something that is
Yeah.
actually sending the real data that you need back and
Right.
forth.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I ran into an issue the other day where I was trying to redirect the user. And that seems easy-ish, right? I mean, Remix included, Next, Astra, they all give you these functions to redirect.
Mhm.
And like when you're using Next, you have to know, am I on the server? Okay, I'm going to use this function. If I'm on the browser, use this function. Well, we don't have that in Redwood SDK. We're relying on standard JavaScript to say window dot is
History
it window?
API?
Yes, or window dot location dot href or
Okay.
whatever. There's two of them. See, this is again one thing that I was like, oh, I didn't realize there was a difference. There's location dot href, and then there's also which operates like a browser, like a click. I looked this up. Let's see if I can find it. And then there's another one that's like window dot location.
Dot push? Or what is it? The one that
Yeah,
adds to the history stack?
that one's adding to the history. There's another one too that I'm thinking of. Um,
I
shoot,
think just
I'm not gonna be
setting
able to find it.
href is the thing that just navigates the page and, like, it's like a replace.
I thought there was one that was like a click, and one that's like a. Maybe I'm making this up. Oh, I know it is. Is it window dot location dot assign?
Oh,
So
I've
that
never
like
I've never used
loads
assign.
assign loads a new document, so it's like a complete hard refresh. Whereas .href, is that right? That says it returns the. I don't know. I need to edit this part if I'm gonna say the wrong
Yes. Yes.
information.
But essentially,
Uh,
one is like pushing onto the history stack as if you clicked,
yep,
and then you can go back still, and
yep,
another one is like just replacing the current document with a
yes,
new document. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, again, things that you don't think about.
Yeah.
Um,
And on the server, the redirect functions that we are normally exposed with are just new response with a 302 status code, or a 301, whatever it is,
ish.
like however you want with some stuff. Yeah, you get a little extra
It's
magic in
it.
there.
Well, the reason is because I tried to call that within a
Hmm.
React server component, and you can't call just a new response within a server component because you're inside
Mm,
React.
sure.
So, anyways, we had to kind of leverage that. We are using that API now, so all that works the way you think it would. But that's the ish part. That's why they give you that function called redirect, but that's kind of what it's leveraging under the hood. So I did a deep dive on that yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, I was a little distracted because I wanted to share this link. We had in episode 112, so this was a while back, we had Chris,
Crude and
Chris,
Andy.
yes, on, and he
Yes.
was all about let's
Yes.
just use vanilla JavaScript.
Yeah.
So he would be all for like the web component stuff. And I remember when we had him on, I thought, not use a framework? What? But he's like,
Yeah.
JavaScript is good. Why not?
Well,
So,
and think about it. Coupled with CSS view transitions, some well-written
yeah.
HTML, and all the good web standards that we have, we are a lot closer to a built-in framework than we were.
Yeah.
When I first met Chris, I feel like it was 5 years ago, more than 5
Mhm.
years ago.
Yeah.
And, at that time, I was like, there's no way. Like, you just can't do everything you need to do just by using JavaScript to replace HTML chunks. And
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. Now it's a whole lot closer, I think, to
Yeah.
feeling a whole
Yeah.
lot better to write vanilla apps.
Uh-huh. For sure. Oh, there's just moments like this where I'm like, I'm so like proud to be a web developer. I'm like, how cool that we get to live this moment in history and just build fun things like this.
We're spoiled rotten. I'll
Yeah,
say
that's
that.
so true. It's so
Yeah.
true.
Until the point where everything gets so complicated, you go, okay, screw this. I'm gonna go be a farmer, right? Everybody has those moments where
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, my moment is like, I think I would rather just go work construction and do something
Really?
physical all day and just come back and be like, oh, I'm beat. That was a tough day's work. Instead of like sitting in front of a computer sometimes and just feeling trapped and going, I don't understand
Yeah.
this. How did we get here? Why is it so complicated? Let me just go swing a hammer.
That's so funny. We have
What's your
friends.
alternate career?
Oh man. Well, okay, so Henry and I have this conversation often. We're like, when we retire, what is going to be our job at Disney? So
At Disney, yeah?
yeah. So I'll put a slight spin on it. I'm gonna be a barista. And he's told
Mm.
me, he's like, you need to be a barista on Main Street and wear those like really weird, like colonial style dresses. Not sure how I feel about that part. But I do think some days I'm like, I would just love to go into Starbucks and make coffee for people. And it's like, if you have a tough customer come in, that's okay. They're going to leave in 5 minutes. Just move along.
Yeah, that's the thing with programming is like when you're staring down a hard problem, y normally there's no going around it. You have to go through it.
Mhm.
You have to figure it out. That's your job, and, I think that's
Yeah.
what Where is Anya is like, problem after problem after problem after problem. The wins they
Yeah.
feel really good, but it's
Yeah. They sure
problems all the
do.
way through.
Yeah. Oh man, but I love it. So this is kind of like not getting into picks and plugs because I picked this before, but I put CodeSpark on the kid's iPad. Technically, it's my iPad that's become the kid's iPad, but it teaches kids how to code. And my daughter was talking to me about it the other day because she was trying to convince me to buy some app, and she's like, "You're paying for CodeSpark." But I'm like, there is so much value in you learning how to code, even if you're
Yeah,
not a programmer, even if you don't sit down and open up Cursor, VS Code, Windsurf, whatever. But the way that it teaches you to think, I think there's so much value in that.
yeah.
So, um,
We've got this, like, coding it's kinda like I want to put it? They're like physical blocks that you put together that'll say,
is it
like, go up
Osmo?
Osmo, that's the one. Our kids love
Yes.
that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, that's the one, and
steal your
it's really
thunder.
cool because it, like, uses the camera to look down, and you're putting blocks together that says, "Go up 5 and to the left 2, and
Yeah.
then jump," and they're putting together these sequences and almost like controlling a robot, like you would do
Mhm.
visually. Yeah, they love it. I always
We
like them playing that more than,
Yeah,
like Minecraft's not the worst video game in the world, but
right.
that to me seems better.
Yes. Yeah. We have Osmo. We do not have the coding package, but my kids have loved, like, all the Osmo expansions that we do have. We have one for pizza, where you're, like, counting money and making pizzas.
Oh, okay.
There's another one with, like, shapes, where you're trying to, like, solve different problems with the shapes or tell stories with the shapes.
I didn't know there was more to I thought it was what it was, but do you
Oh,
mean
yeah,
it
there's
comes
a
with
whole
more
bunch of them.
physical pieces and, like, software to
Uh-huh.
support it?
Yeah. Yeah, depending on which one you get. Oh, one of their favorite ones is like a kinda Where's Waldo type thing, where you
Cool,
open up to different countries and you're trying to find different things in that country's map.
cool.
So, highly
Would you
recommend. It's a
ever
little pricey.
use would you ever use, like, a iPad for, like, a second monitor? 'Cause that's the one device that I just don't have any use for, I feel like.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, but I'm like, "Okay, if you could, like, take it on an airplane, maybe use
Yep.
it in bed, I've got a TV. Why don't but if it's like a second monitor too, kind of like Slack
Yeah.
is over here, that could be kinda cool."
I have used it at a coffee shop when I'm, like, on the
Mhm.
go or, like, in a
Like
hotel trying to
laptop
use. Mhm.
and iPad? Okay.
Yes. The one issue that I have with it, kind of, is that I really wanna use it in vertical mode. when I'm using it as a second screen. I don't know if it's just like I want to have code on it, or I don't know. I just want it to be in vertical mode. You can only use it in horizontal mode
That seems weird.
if it's in sidecar. Yeah. So
That seems weird. Yeah, I feel like
Right.
all the features they added to that with the sidecar and all like the copy and paste stuff and the
Mhm.
really valuable for a second monitor situation.
Yeah. If you're yeah, especially if you're traveling. The other thing that I have used sometimes is an app called Astro Studio. You have to pay for it. It's a monthly subscription, so I'll turn it on and turn it off. But it allows you to use your Apple Pencil as a mouse on screen. Don't know if you can get that with Sidecar or not. But when I've been doing like Photoshop work, if I'm trying to do something really tedious and I want to be able to use my pencil instead of a mouse, that's been really helpful. And I found that to be a good like Wacom tablet if you have used one of those in the past. It's a
Okay,
good
sweet.
Wacom tablet replacement. Yeah. We've veered off. Let's get into picks and plugs.
Right
We've
into
already
picks
picked
and plugs.
things.
Yeah.
So, picks the next segment of the show is picks and plugs, where we pick something that we like and plug something generally that we've worked on. Brad, do you have picks and plugs?
Easy plug this time. I've been streaming a lot on YouTube,
Yes.
doing a lot of little demos, working on the Remix Austin website, working on my own Remix app starter. It's been a great time. Ryan Florence retweeted one of my last live streams, and I had a good amount of viewers, so that was fun. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Brad Garrity. I'm gonna be live, a lot.
Awesome.
So let me grab that link real quick.
Oh man, I have so many picks and plugs, but I've actually been writing them down.
You have been writing them down?
Mhm. Did you get is that your pick and your plug?
No, that's my pick, or my plug.
Okay.
My pick,
Okay.
I've been doing a lot with Cloudflare lately. I wanna pick Cloudflare.
Yes.
They have such good primitives.
Yes.
What I mean is, like, boom, you've got an app host. Workers can now host full apps. You don't have to use Pages anymore. Workers have full apps. They have observability built in, so logs are there. You can spin up a database from a command line in, like, half a second. You
Yes.
can even automate the orchestration of all this. You've got key value stores, databases, queues. All the primitives are there. It's pretty easy to work with. We were talking about some rough edges that could be smoothed out to make integrating things a little bit nicer. But like, man, building on a Cloudflare stack is really cool. And if it just, you know, this is kind of almost a plug for Redwood SDK once I try it and get my head around it. But
Yeah.
you had a framework that could take advantage of all this and put it together. And I need to get my hands on Redwood SDK. Um, this could be like the Laravel of JavaScript ecosystem. So I'm
Mhm.
excited about like the
Yes.
possibilities that Cloudflare has to offer and anything that integrates with it.
Sweet. So I'll do my plug first. I'm going to plug the tutorial I've been writing. So by the time the audio version of this goes live, the tutorial will be live. So it's uh you can preview it now, but it will be probably live by it. Well, yeah, it will be live by the end of the week. So as soon as I finish writing, I'm going to start recording a video. So Brad, I'll have you go through my video once it's done. You can watch it at
Sweet. Sweet.
2x speed and see. But yeah, I think we're both Cloudflare fan kids, fan people. So yeah, check out the tutorial for Redwood SDK. And then I do it. I will pick. Wait, no. Let's see. Is that a pick? That'll be a pick and plug. I don't know which one. That was my plug. I'll do a pick now. This is just for you, Brad.
All
So
right.
there's a website called DQ Deals. Have you heard of this?
DQ like DQ, the people who
It,
do accessibility stuff, or DQ like Dairy Queen, or what are we talking here?
what if I did pick Dairy Queen?
Get your fries for cheap.
Oh man. Okay, it's spelled DEQU deals.com. Here, I'm gonna copy it and put a link in the chat. So what this does, I had a friend tell me about it, is it watches video games and it will tell you the most popular deals for that week. If there's a game that you're like you want to buy, but you want to watch it for when it's cheapest, you can set different alerts within your account. So I've gotten emails to say, hey, this game that you've been watching is on sale at Target or Best Buy or wherever.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we've really enjoyed that. I think I mentioned previously last summer we lost a bunch of our
Oh
Switch
yeah.
games while we were traveling. So I have all those old games on alerts and have been getting notifications when they're on sale. So yeah, pretty great.
And I've realized this about myself and gaming. I don't necessarily need to have the latest thing. So
Mhm.
there's just no point in buying the game as soon as it comes out. There's
Yeah.
enough of a backlog of things that like I'm interested in that you can get the thing on sale for $20, instead
Yep.
of paying the 60. And so if you just kind of play them later, you can get the exact same amount of enjoyment for like less than half of the price. This
Yeah.
website is awesome.
I have mentioned this before, but there's also they changed the name of it. um, you can look at camelcamel.com, or it looks like you can also Google the Camelizer. And what that does is it's an app that will tell you the price history for certain products on Amazon. So if you are looking on Amazon to see when the lowest price hits or how that price compares to previous price points, it's really good too.
Awesome. Speaking of video games, you guys gonna do the whole Switch 2 thing?
Probably.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm gonna just be honest, based on what I've seen, I'm like, it doesn't look that different.
And I think that's why I like it. The Switch 1 hit so good for me. I like that
So
it's
good.
portable. I
Yeah.
like that I can play it. I like that the kids can play it. Um, Great on an airplane. Just
Yeah.
really good form factor and flexibility. And so I'm like, more of the same. Sign me up.
Yeah. Well, and I will say a huge thing is even if you don't care about the like graphics card updates or whatever, I love the Nintendo games more than any of the other platforms.
Yeah,
And if you want to have access to those or get any of the new games, then
you
you're just
gotta
gonna have
have
to
Nintendo.
upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The new Mario Kart looks kind of cool. It's like open world. You can just drive anywhere. It seems like a lot of
Oh,
fun.
really?
Yeah,
Interesting. We
yeah.
have the oh, what's it called? It's the AR cars where you can set
Oh,
up
is
the
is that
track in your
cool?
house.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the kids love it.
yeah. That
The
looks neat.
funny thing is, because you can just drive around, my son will sometimes use the car as like a spy camera. Just like drive it into my office and be like, "What you doing?"
And it's a physical car, like, with a camera on it, right? And that,
That's right.
like, streams to the TV? Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
really
It's
cool.
very strange if you watch the car versus watching it on the TV. If you're playing, you really can't watch the car and try and drive it. You have to
Sure.
watch the TV. And some of it is, I don't know what they did, but the parallax or whatever, it just feels like if you're looking on the TV, the car's going a lot faster than it is in real life.
Yeah, it's
Oh, but
probably got,
it's
like, a
fun.
fisheye lens on it, and so think, like, the edges are
Yeah.
flying by, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's fun. Yeah. Sweet. Well, a lot of good picks and plugs there at the end.
Yeah. We can always
Uh,
fill an hour, no problem.
I know it's not hard. Thanks everybody for hanging out. If you are listening in your podcatcher of choice, please leave a rating and review. It helps other people find the podcast and bring on great sponsors and great guests. So until then, that's all we got. Oh man, that's fun. I don't have anything else. Thanks, chat.
Yep. See y'all.